In 1833, the Lord gave the prophet Joseph Smith a revelation unlike anything the world had seen, a health code that would become known as the Word of Wisdom, which is recorded in Doctrine and Covenants, section 89. Welcome to Chillin' in the Foyer, where we are going to be kicking off in this episode an 8-part series regarding the Word of Wisdom. We'll start today with a high-level overview. Our next episode will be about just how interesting it is that Joseph Smith, at a time when tobacco, alcohol, and other things were not seen as bad for our bodies, he actually did get that revelation from the Lord. And then when did science actually catch up with the Word of Wisdom, basically? The next video will be about tobacco. We'll go in depth about that. Then alcohol, coffee, and we'll lump in caffeine and energy drinks, although the church does not specifically exclude energy drinks or caffeine. We'll still talk about those things. The next one, episode 6, will be food guidance, where you'll notice as you read through Doctrine and Covenants 89 that there is some recommendations on food and how much we eat and those kind of things. The 6th part will be about verse 4, which we'll read in just a second, about conspiring men and what that means. And then the final one would be about exercise and stewardship, which it's not directly, exercise is not directly taught in the Word of Wisdom, but I do think it's important that we add this to it. So, as we talked about, at this time, tobacco, alcohol, and strong coffee were normal and even celebrated, yet the Lord told his saints to avoid them, not by commandment at first, but as a principle with promise. All right, let's jump into it. So in Doctrine and Covenants 89, verses 5 through 9, this is where the Lord warns us to avoid wine and strong drinks, tobacco, hot drinks, which was later clarified by Hiram Smith first in 1842, so 9 years after the Doctrine and Covenants was released in 1833, that those hot drinks mean coffee and tea. They also gave counsel as to what we should consume: use herbs and fruits in season, eat meat sparingly, make grain the staff of life, which you can see over here on the side. And then in verses 18 through 21, then come the promises. As we follow, it says we'll have health in our navel and marrow to our bones, wisdom and knowledge, even hidden treasures, strength to run and not be weary. And we see those kind of things when we eat right, we fuel our bodies right, and we exercise, and even divine protection. So let's look here, and I do want to go over, and you'll see it on the one side here. We just kind of showed the Doctrine and Covenants 89, but now let's read. This is in topics and questions, and this is why, like as I said in one of my first videos, I want to show you what's here, but I also want you to feel comfortable and know that you know where to find these answers. So it says, God has revealed the Word of Wisdom as a commandment for the physical and spiritual benefit of his children. The prophet Joseph Smith received this revelation on February 27, 1833, and is now recorded in section 89, just like we talked about. So we'll kind of skim through this. Feel free to read along if you'd like, but he prohibits some substances that are not good for the human body. In the Word of Wisdom, talks about what we should be having, and includes this important note here of with prudence and thanksgiving. The flesh of beasts and fowls of the air, which is to be used sparingly. And then grains such as wheat, rice, and oats are the staff of life. So that's like an important, pinnacle of what we need to partake in life. The Word of Wisdom also teaches us to avoid these substances that are harmful: alcoholic drinks, tobacco, tea, and coffee. With this, and I promise in future episodes we will talk about these more in depth, but with this, the Lord promises increased health, wisdom, knowledge, and protection to those who obey the Word of Wisdom. So since its introduction, prophets have taught about the importance of following the Word of Wisdom. In addition, they have taught church members to avoid substances that will impair judgment or are harmful or highly addictive, whether legal or illegal. For example, vaping and the misuse of prescription drugs and recreational use of marijuana violate church teachings. Prophets have taught that we should also follow healthy practices such as nutritious eating, regular exercise, as we just talked about, proper hygiene, and getting sufficient rest. So what I want to point out here is that the word of wisdom is in section 89, that we know comes directly from the Lord. And so that would be something that is, we could definitely say is doctrine, right? And now these other things, when we talk about vaping or prescription drugs, even, the use of marijuana as it is now, the reason it's so important is even though those are not in section 89 specifically, it's important to recognize that those were things that weren't necessarily an issue or a problem back at that time, and they have become that in our time. And so that's where the church being a living church with revelation is important for us to keep in mind. Okay, and then right here is the handbook, which, like I said, it talks a lot about the same things as we just talked about with the with the topics and questions. So I won't go over this again, but I just want to once again show you where you can find this. And this is in, if you were to go to the handbook, it's in section 38.7.14, where you can read this for yourself. And then finally, this last one here, this comes for strength of youth. It's in the body section. Your body is sacred. It says, do things that will strengthen your body. Nothing that will hurt or damage it. Enjoy with gratitude the many good things that God has provided. But remember that alcohol, tobacco, coffee, and tea, and other harmful drugs and substances are not for your body or your spirit. Even helpful substances like prescription drugs can be destructive if not used correctly. So, as I said, we'll go deeper into a lot of these things, but I think it is important that we just take a quick look, like we just did, of what the word of wisdom is. And to keep in mind that the word of wisdom isn't just about what we eat or drink, it is about who we trust. God's counsel often goes against the trends of the world, but it's always designed for our safety, joy, and freedom. And as we get into these future episodes where we talk about what Joseph Smith said with these revelations and what the Lord has really given us, we're ahead of science. We're ahead of what the world was doing. And now we can see that because we have this, increased knowledge from science and what it's learned, that the word of wisdom is a good thing for us. And so so I think the word of wisdom, it's important to notice that the word of wisdom is an example of just being faithful and obedient to God, even if we don't fully understand why. So thank you for watching this today. Hope you enjoy the upcoming episodes as well. And as always, love God, love others, and please feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you want.